Bray Wanderers. Tony O'Donoghue was at Dalymount for this one.
Bows in second, Bray second from bottom. This surely should have gone the way of the home team, but the Wicklow side are on a great run of form. Gary Shaw bringing it safe from Chris O'Connor, Shelley scrambling clear. The Gypsies got better as the game went on and kept possession well. Keegan and Rossiter combining to set up Glenn Cronin, a decent strike from the midfielder. A corner for Bowes from Keegan, cleared by Adam Mitchell, and when the ball breaks to Cronin again on the edge of the box, his shot struck the upright after a deflection. And the danger wasn't over for Bray. Paddy Madden picked up the pieces and delivered across. Ken O'Man with the header. Bowes were turning the screw now, but some of Bray's troubles were self-inflicted. Paddy Madden chased the ball into the channel, and Matt Gregg rushed out of his goal, hoping to find Rose Zed. The quick-thinking Paul Keegan took the throw, and Raf Trataro found Madden. Luckily for Bray, Gregg made it back to his goal in the nick of time. This was an ideal opportunity for Bohemians to make up ground on Shamrock Rovers. Raf Trataro left Mitchell for dead and set up Paddy Madden. His shot saved by Gregg with his legs. A corner resulted. Controversially, the game turned on a sending off. Mark Quigley's mazy run eventually halted. There was some contact between several bodies here, and in the midst of it all, Bray's Adam Mitchell went down in a heap. Referee Porrick Sutton reached for the red card, and Quigley could hardly believe it. The Bowes player refusing his marching orders. Bray keeper Matt Gregg getting involved in a peacekeeping capacity as well. Pat Fenlon side down to 10 men and with some reshuffling on the cards. That was on 72 minutes, but 6 minutes later, the home team were down to 9. As Bray cleared their lines, the ball was flicked on by Shane O'Neill into the danger area. Chris O'Connor took out the Bray youngster Gary Shaw well outside the area. The challenge was rash and the fall was dramatic. The referee reached for the red card without hesitation once again. Although Bohemians were furious, they felt Shelley had got back and therefore O'Connor was not the last man. Although the challenge alone probably deserved the punishment. Bray are 6 games unbeaten now, and their football at times, particularly with numerical advantage, sublime. Shane O'Neill and Gary Shaw were brilliant in the build-up to this move, and the second 1-2 led to a shot from Dane Massey, saved by substitute Bowes keeper Barry Murphy. As 0-0 draws go, this was fairly eventful, and the 9 men of Bowes kept going to the end. This was in the 94th minute when Aaron Green's through ball found Paul Keegan. Incredible energy levels from the midfielder, and a wonderful save from Matt Gregg. And the drama wasn't over yet. A Bray ball pumped into the danger zone by Dempsey. Ken O'Man's header up in the air. Gary Shaw looked to gain advantage. Jason McGuinness bundling him over. It looked like a stonewall penalty, according to Bray boss Pat Devlin afterwards. But it wasn't given. Instead, it was the last action of a pulsating 95 minutes. And although both managers were unhappy with the ref, they were probably quite pleased with a point apiece.
Last week we had a man sent off in Sligo, and the referee is adamant that he'd stand on the player, and the evidence obviously shows that he doesn't, so the referee told me tonight that Mark headbutted him. I asked Mark, he said he didn't, so I need to watch it again.
We're a little bit disappointed that we didn't capitalise on the 2 players that they had sent off, and we feel it was a stonewall penalty at the end. So all in all, we're a little bit disappointed coming away not having the 3 points, which is obviously shows the progress we've made of late.
So all of that means that this is how the top of the table looks. Just 5 points between them, and of course they play tomorrow night at Dalymount Park. Shamrock Rovers with a 5-goal better goal difference as well, but that game tomorrow night is going to be massive. We'll talk about that shortly, Damien, the game tomorrow, but let's reflect back on those games over the weekend. First of all, if you had said that UCD were going to beat Shamrock Rovers and Bray would hold Bowes, you've got good odds?
Great odds, and 2 away defeats for Shamrock Rovers, successive away defeats, conceding 8 goals in the process, would tend to suggest they're not handling the pressure particularly well. But that would overlook other facts. This was a terrific game. Stephen Malcolm was quite correct. A fabulous game. The second half was quite compelling, end-to-end stuff. I think it hinged on a decision made at half-time when UCD went to 3 in midfield and allowed them to sit back deep and hit Rovers on the break, and it was very, very effective in what they did. Shamrock Rovers did most of the play, but UCD used the break very, very well. There were a couple of contentious decisions, which is why Michael O'Neill was quite upset. But if you're going to be good enough to win the league, you have to be able to overcome all those sort of things. You have to show that you can handle the pressure. And Shamrock Rovers now have, to me, the most perfect opportunity coming up tomorrow night to show everybody that they can handle the pressure of going on and winning the league.
Is that something, Roddy? I know you were at Dalymount for the other game, that maybe the pressure is kind of off Bohemians in a way, but yet they still didn't do the
pressure,
business.
when you're chasing, the pressure's on obviously the people leading, on Shamrock Rovers leading the pack. There was no pressure, you could see it, and there was no, like, I was disappointed in there was no imagination in the Bows team. They started, they worked very hard now and they kept the ball very well, but there was no real penetration of the Bray back four. They didn't really break them down. So I was disappointed from that point of view. No lack of urgency, plenty of endeavour, but no real guile. And looking from the bench, and you're sitting in, they didn't have a great deal to change it, but within the 11 that started, there was opportunities to change it and possibly get Shelley in at right back, because they only played one up front to allow a bit of width down that side. But the balance of Bows, they suffered with the suspensions of Killian Brennan, and down the left hand side there was no great balance. But at the end of the day, the result coming through to Rovers was more disappointing than anything else. But Bows still gained 1 point, regardless. Before the game, Rovers are going to beat UCD, we all feel. Bows are going to beat Bray, even Stephen. At the end of the day, Bows have nicked the point on the marching.
Because one of the things as well, Tony, is you might say, well, it's a shock that Rovers lose to UCD or Bows get held by Bray, but that maybe doesn't take into account the fact that Bray and UCD are both in good form, and certainly Bray are an amazing one.
Yeah, they're fighting for their lives. They've had a fantastic run since Pat Devlin took over, but he's a good backroom staff there as well, and they're playing very good football. Some experienced players in that squad now, and you can see they're in a rich vein of form. And I'd be very worried for any side going into that playoff place playing against Bray, and particularly, even a first division side looking at that. They look very, very strong. So it's no great shock. And as for UCD, 5 weeks ago I would have been quite worried about them. Didn't look like they were going to buy a win at that stage. David McMillan coming back into the side out wide from a big player for them has done very well. But like that, you go into the end of the season, anything can happen. Who'd have thought that they'd beat Pats and beat Rovers in the run-in, drawing against the teams around them, so picking up results. I think they'll see safety quite well now. A big game for them coming up at the weekend, of course. But you're right, Con. Going into this stage of the season, when you're playing teams down in the lower half of the division, the tendency is to think the top teams will run away. But pressure, as we talked about, plays a huge part.
And sometimes refereeing decisions, controversy, it's all part of the game. I suppose there was no shortage of that in both of those games that we've just seen, Damien. Let's have a look at the Shamrock Rovers one first, the UCD game. That you
yes, if you look at this, the lad slips, and it doesn't appear to me like he handles the ball. And the referee is in a very, very good position. So I think that's a very unlucky decision. We'll see it a little bit better here. He slips there, he's no control over his movement, so there's definitely no intent to play the ball. And it was a great penalty, and it was a slice of fortune for Shamrock Rovers. But this hit, I don't think this is a free kick. I think Siva's got the ball. It's difficult to see there because Turner's in front, but this is a magnificent free kick. So Michael O'Neill was saying they played well, which they did. Both teams played very, very well. But Gary Twigg scored one, had two other chances. Stewart had two very, very good chances. The thing about if you're going to win the league, you've got to take those chances. Had he taken those, UCD were gone, and Shamrock Rovers sitting very, very pretty.
That was equally the point up in Dalymount Park. There was a few chances there that they normally would put away. However, when the sending offs came, I didn't think it was going to change the pattern of the game, because it was very sterile at that.
We'll have a look at those sending offs and see what you think.
Yeah.
What was your initial feeling on the night?
Well, on the Mark Quigley one, taking it on merit and what he's seen on the night, I thought he made contact. I wished he didn't, because he's a good lad. It's not in his nature, but it looks as if they made contact. And once you make contact and the referee is there, it's a straight red. This one here, I believed wasn't a red card till Tony educated me before we come on, in the sense that I don't know if the red card is for the actual tackle or being the last man there to
penalty shout there at the end of the
Yeah. Stonewall penalty for me. Sloppy defending. Keeper could have given a little call, would have rolled into his hands, didn't. Puts it up in the air, and for me that was a penalty. Stonewall gone into the back of him. I think it was McGuinness went straight into the back of the player. Shaw. Looked to me, they could have lost that game. So
it's the pressure, isn't it? It's big games, and people think of referees making mistakes, but players made mistakes. Players on both sides made mistakes in both games, and the referees, I think, made mistakes. It's part and parcel of this punishing run into the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah, but we won't notice the refereeing decisions till tomorrow night, because it'll happen in these games, say Bray, Bows, UCD, but tomorrow night it'll be magnified tenfold.
So no pressure on the ref tomorrow then? No?
Massive pressure.
Well, one man who has a unique perspective on tomorrow night's big game is Brian Shelley, who of course plays for Bohemians but also had two spells at Shamrock Rovers in the past. Well, he was speaking